In the Philippines, 1.3 million people built their careers around a single promise: that human communication was something machines could never replicate. That promise expired sometime around 2023. The question isn't whether AI is coming for jobs, it already has, but why it's hitting some economies like a sledgehammer while making others dramatically wealthier. If you want to understand how AI is redrawing the economic map in real time, who wins, who loses, and why the gap is accelerating faster than most governments can respond, subscribe to The Econaut, because we track the forces reshaping the global economy before they become headlines. There are two versions of the AI story being told right now, and both are true simultaneously. The first says AI is just another technology, like electricity or the internet, that will destroy some jobs, create better ones, and ultimately make everyone wealthier. The second says this time is fundamentally different, and the argument is worth taking seriously. When industrial machinery replaced physical labor in the 19th century, it freed human minds to think, communicate, and problem solve. Machines handled muscles, while humans handled cognition. AI breaks that bargain entirely because cognition is precisely what it's learning to replicate. Certain economies are already living the early chapters of this story in real time. And what's happening there tells us everything we need to know about what's coming everywhere else. The Philippines spent 30 years building a $37 billion outsourcing industry, employing over 1.3 million people in customer service, technical support, billing, transcription, and data processing. This sector alone contributes more than 7% of the country's entire GDP, built through deliberate national strategy that worked spectacularly for 3 decades. That strategy rested on a specific assumption that tasks requiring natural language, contextual judgment, and human empathy were automation-proof. That assumption turned out to have an expiration date. Large language models can now handle the majority of those tasks in seconds, at a fraction of the cost, without health insurance, vacation entitlements, or any human overhead. The IMF estimates that 89% of outsourced service jobs in the Philippines now face elevated automation risk, not in the theoretical future, but within the current decade. Bangladesh faces a structurally identical problem, with 400 firms employing over 80,000 people built almost entirely around customer service, data entry, and transcription. These are precisely the categories where AI capability is advancing fastest. The economic logic is brutal in its simplicity. If an AI system delivers equivalent output faster and cheaper with zero overhead, there is no rational business case for maintaining offshore human labor. A single server rack could economically replace an entire call center in Manila or Dhaka. The outsourcing model wasn't just an industry, it was the ladder. The pathway from agricultural economies toward middle-income status that these countries organize their entire futures around. AI isn't just threatening those jobs, it's potentially dismantling the entire developmental model. Meanwhile, the countries positioned to capture AI's economic gains are the ones that already have the most. The Center for Economic Policy Research projects the U.S. economy could receive a 5.4% GDP boost over the next decade from AI-driven productivity growth, with the UK, Germany, and South Korea facing similarly optimistic projections. Developing nations are looking at roughly 2.7 to 3.5%, and that's before accounting for the jobs they're simultaneously losing to automation. This isn't coincidence, it's structural. Building frontier AI systems requires advanced technical education, reliable infrastructure, and cutting-edge hardware, resources heavily concentrated in a small number of wealthy nations. The most economically valuable AI roles are consequently the least accessible to workers in emerging markets. And when those markets do develop exceptional talent, it frequently leaves, recruited by global tech companies or relocating to San Francisco, London, Berlin, or Shenzhen. The result is an accelerating brain drain that strips developing economies of the very people they need to compete in the AI transition. AI isn't only dividing countries along geographic lines, it's creating equally sharp divisions within wealthy nations between workers who can leverage AI as a productivity multiplier and workers who will be replaced by it. Economists describe this distinction as complementary versus substitutive capital. When the combine harvester transformed agriculture, it didn't eliminate farm workers. It made each worker dramatically more productive, with labor and capital working together as productivity and wages both increased. For high-skill roles, AI will function as complementary capital in exactly this way. A financial analyst using AI to process thousands of documents can dedicate more bandwidth to strategic judgment, while a physician leveraging AI diagnostics can spend more time on patient care requiring genuine human presence. But for routine, process-driven work that follows predictable patterns, AI increasingly functions as substitutive capital, replacing human labor rather than enhancing it. An AI-powered customer service system doesn't make a support agent faster, it removes the support agent entirely. An advanced code generation tool doesn't assist a junior developer, it makes the junior developer redundant while making the senior architect who directs the AI more valuable. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects consistent decline in cashier, bank teller, postal worker, and customer service roles across the coming decade. One comprehensive analysis projects 7.1 million jobs disappearing within 5 years, with up to 47% of current employment categories carrying meaningful automation risk. Since 2017, the United States has produced 135 large-scale AI systems and China 110, while the UK accounts for 25 and France for 24. The economic architecture of AI is already revealing itself as a concentrated oligopoly. PwC projects AI will add $15.7 trillion to global GDP by 2030, and 70% of that wealth is projected to flow to just 2 countries, the United States and China. More than 90% of the advanced chips powering AI systems worldwide are designed and manufactured across just 5 countries: the US, Taiwan, China, South Korea, and Japan. The countries leading AI development don't just control the software, they control the physical infrastructure layer that everything else depends on. This dynamic closely mirrors what happened when industrial automation transformed manufacturing between 1980 and 2010, when more than 7 million factory jobs disappeared from the American economy. Detroit, Cleveland, and Youngstown weren't just losing employment, they were losing the schools, hospitals, and social fabric that employment had sustained for generations. Life expectancy declined, drug dependency increased, and the jobs that eventually returned paid less with fewer benefits than the ones they replaced. The UK experienced an analogous disruption through the collapse of coal mining, shipbuilding, and steel across northern England and Scotland, with places like Sheffield and Sunderland still trailing national averages in income and social mobility decades later. The lesson is not that technological transitions are uniformly bad. They aren't. The lesson is that transitions cause real damage to real people in specific places, and that damage doesn't automatically reverse itself when the broader economy eventually benefits. At amplifies, the countries seeing AI's impact first aren't just cautionary examples, they're providing advance warning about what's coming. The Philippine government has launched a national AI strategy targeting retraining of over 1 million workers by 2028. While Bangladesh has released a policy framework focused on domestic AI talent, modernizing education, and supporting technology startups. Whether these efforts will prove sufficient at the scale required is genuinely uncertain, but they represent the kind of forward-looking response that wealthier nations should be developing now, rather than after the disruption has already concentrated. 2 priorities must operate simultaneously: aggressive investment in AI infrastructure, and equally aggressive investment in human capital. Not just computer science, but complex problem-solving, contextual judgment, creative decision-making, and sophisticated communication, the capabilities AI genuinely struggles to replicate. A recent analysis of 12 million US job postings found that AI adoption tends to increase demand for these specifically human skills, suggesting the labor market is already beginning to differentiate between replaceable and complementary capabilities. Approximately 2.6 billion people worldwide still lack reliable internet connectivity, and without basic digital infrastructure, participation in the AI economy is simply not possible. The World Bank estimates that every 10% increase in broadband penetration can boost GDP growth in developing countries by up to 1.4%, before factoring in the additional impact of AI access layered on top. Social protection systems function as economic shock absorbers, giving displaced workers the time and financial stability to adapt without being forced into whatever employment is immediately available. If AI allows businesses to grow output while reducing their workforce and displaced workers can't maintain consumption, productivity rises while aggregate demand falls, a hollowing out dynamic with no easy exit. If AI generates dramatic productivity, gains flowing almost entirely to companies and capital holders who own the systems, while distributing disruption costs across workers and communities who don't, we aren't building a more productive economy. We're building a more unequal one with better technology at the top. Whether AI ultimately deepens the economic divides it's already accelerating or becomes a genuine driver of broader prosperity depends on deliberate choices about who builds these systems, who governs their deployment, and how the gains are distributed. Those choices are being made right now, mostly without the public deliberation they deserve. The countries that navigate this transition, well, won't be the ones that simply let the technology develop fastest. They'll be the ones that thought carefully about what they wanted the technology to do for their people. That's not a technological question, it's an economic and political one, and the answers being written today will determine the distribution of prosperity for the next generation.